What was beautiful about the intensive is that AJR brought professionals, they brought psychologists, they brought, for example, neurologists, researchers in this area that could bring current research into this and show that mindfulness is not just, again, a practice that is pretty hot and cool right now, but also it's not just hype, but there is a solid scientific foundation to mindfulness, and at the same time to bring the connection and show the connection to our Jewish sources.
And I think if we understand the technology and how that fits together with our text and our tradition, we can serve to guide people through this difficult time and help them come to terms with how to make a decision about them.
The psychopharmacology for clergy class helped to give me a greater sense of empathy for what congregants or others I may be serving are dealing with in their lives. It also helped to underscore the important role that we play as clergy in connecting people.
This class has been helpful for my thinking and teaching and sermon writing by reminding me that the lines between science and religious thought don't have to be so clear-cut.
One thing that Michael Casper and Dr. David Aftergood taught me is that we clergy can be an entry point for those seeking for referrals from mental health professionals.
This class has given me new ways to help my congregants interact with our sacred text. Thousands of years after the Israelites wandered in the wilderness, we are still awed by the natural world and how it works.
AJR's religion and science courses have helped me to make connections that allow me to better address cutting-edge issues of modern science, ethics, and morality in my sermons and classes in a relevant and knowledgeable way.
Good evening. Welcome to Science and Religion Face to Face, Building Bridges to Lives of Meaning. I'm Robert Green, a rabbi and alumnus of the Academy for Jewish Religion and co-chair of tonight's event. I'm exceptionally pleased to introduce this program, which AJR is presenting in conjunction with the Alda Center for Communicating Science. Tonight we'll give you a taste of the larger, ongoing exploration in our new Center for Judaism and Science at AJR, where we examine the intersection of Judaism and science. AJR was very fortunate to receive a generous grant from the American Association for the Advancement of Science to bring science into our seminary curriculum. The resulting new Center for Judaism and Science at AJR combines coursework and communal programs promoting dialogue on science, ethics, and religion. What is the Academy for Jewish Religion? AJR is a pluralistic, rabbinical, cantorial, and graduate school that has been ordaining rabbis and cantors for over 65 years through a rigorous academic program devoted to creative pedagogy and to providing its students with a foundation in history, text, and tradition while preparing them to address the rapid changes that are constantly taking place in our world. AJR is unique in creating a warm and nurturing environment, understanding the individuality and embracing the spiritual depth of each person. Why do we believe that the study of science and religion is important? As our Dean and CEO, Dr. Ora Horn-Prauser, succinctly says, science is data. Religion gives meaning to science. It is at the intersection of religion and science where we look to our Jewish teachings to understand how we use the data of science. We are indeed in a time of rapid growth in our world and a time of great excitement and growth at AJR. This is precisely why students have been choosing AJR in numbers greater than ever. The blend of history, text, and tradition with the ever-expanding knowledge of our modern world speaks to AJR students who want to meet the needs of their congregants who are firmly planted in the 21st century. Tonight, we honor Alan Alda for his work with the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science, and we honor Rabbi Jill Hackle, MD, for her work as a rabbi and professor of bioethics at AJR, as well as other institutions of higher learning. I now turn our program over to Dr. Laura Lindenfeld of the Alda Center for Communicating Science and Rabbi Ariane Weitzman, AJR alumna, and our event co-chair for our first conversation.
Robert, thank you so much for being my co-chair and for opening our conversation. I'm so excited to be in conversation with Laura. And I invite those of you who are watching our broadcast on Zoom to throw any questions you might have into the chat as we go. We'll see if we have time to answer any of them at the end. And please engage in our conversation through the chat. So Laura, I'm so glad that you are hosting us here at the Alda Center and being part of this conversation with us. I want to just tell you a little bit about why I'm here in this conversation. So I had a very short stint in the sciences before becoming a rabbi. And I found in my own scientific learning that I was fascinated by the big questions of where the universe came from and the ways in which it was expanding and growing, and I really wanted to know more about that. But I also found myself really searching for meaning and feeling like I really wasn't quite asking the right questions of life or asking the right questions of my studies. I needed something a little bit different. But science has always been in the background of my rabbinate and a part of the way that I understand the wider world and the way I make meaning of my own life. And I want to just ask you, why do you do this work? So that we can start our conversation.
Well, I'm so pleased you're here. Thank you for coming out to Stony Brook University. We're so thrilled to be here. Why do I do this work? I do this work because I believe it's important for scientists to help convey to the different audiences out there in the world the wonder and joy and beauty and importance of science. And we shouldn't just sit back and assume that people will automatically understand science and what it means and what can be done with it. It's incumbent upon us in the scientific community to build bridges. And I was very drawn to the Alda Center because of the work that Alda started using improvisational theater to help scientists learn to connect with audiences in genuine ways.
So you mentioned the wonder and the joy of science, so I want to just talk about that a little bit more. The place where I really connect to scientific learning is around awe. And the way in which knowing more about how our world functions puts me in a position of having awe for the universe and having awe around the fact that I get to exist in this world, on this planet, in all of the incredible ways that I get to exist here. And those moments of feeling awe are the places that direct me towards my spiritual life, right? When I have an opening to wonder and to joy at understanding the natural world, it puts me on a path toward seeking greater spiritual life. And I've been thinking a lot around the questions of the way that scientific understanding leads us to questions of meaning, questions of purpose in the wider world. I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about society's greatest achievements, I think we often think art, music, science is up there. It's remarkable what science has been able to discover and what we've been able to achieve as a society. I know that I stand in awe of that, and I think it's so fascinating. You have this background both as a scientist and a rabbi. That feeling of awesomeness of something, how profound and important it is. And I'm curious how you and your training both as a rabbi and a scientist think that drawing on your sense of religion and belief can help inspire people to care more about and connect more with science. Because that's really what we're after in the Alda Center, is helping people discover the value and importance of science through effective communication.
So I'm reminded of a story. Several years ago, there was a hurricane, and around the hurricane, we heard all of these stories about fire ants. I don't know if you remember this, several years ago in Texas. And I brought the science around how fire ants live in a communal group into a high holiday sermon. And people, I think, still joke about that. But I was really fascinated about the structure of the fire ant community. So the way that it works is the fire ants are just sort of, rolling down rivers of water in the hurricane floodwaters, and they want to protect the queen. And so the ants crawl over each other, taking turns being at the bottom of the pile, so that the ant queen gets to stay at the top of the pile. And I couldn't get that image out of my mind, the image of collective responsibility for keeping this colony of ants alive and keeping its most important member alive, and the way in which human societies, religious communities, do the same thing, right? That we take turns supporting each other. I couldn't get that connection out of my mind. And I am sometimes just amazed at the way in which a new piece of information about how the world works reminds me that we are so intricately connected, right? There is no separation between the way in which our communities work and the way in which the larger world is built. And this is just, one sort of example of the way in which all things are connected to each other. All life is connected to each other. Every time I go back to stories like that or sources like that, I'm just, it reinvigorates my sense of commitment to a mission of bringing meaning into the way that we live. And I am so moved by being in the natural world and understanding the natural world further. And I want to just notice the things that we know about the natural world are not accidents, right? We decide what it is important to know about, right? We decide where we're going to focus our inquiry. And that's a human endeavor, right? So science is not something that is sterile or lacks subjectivity. In fact, it is an expression of the way in which humans decide what's important, right? How do we know things? Why do we want to know them? What's important to know? And that impacts what kinds of results we get from that inquiry.
Of course.
Right?
It strikes me as you were telling that story, that's such a fabulous story, the inherent curiosity that you, and I mean, as humans, we're curious. We want to know, we want to understand, we want to make sense of. And the work that we do at the Center for Communicating Science is really about helping scientists revisit their own sense of curiosity and creativity. And I think oftentimes people think of science as simply these facts that we know or that we generate, but scientists come to science because they care. They care about finding meaning. And I think what we're able to do through improv is, as you described with this story, which I'd love to hear how your congregants responded to this. I bet they were awed by it. Able to re-engender the sense of creativity and curiosity that set them off to become scientists in the beginning. So when I think about science and religion, I think these are worlds that we can bridge pretty naturally. And some folks might think about them as being oppositional. I don't. And I suspect you feel similarly, having walked in both arenas.
I mean, that's why I'm here. Right. There is no separation to my mind, right? We are trying to figure out ultimate truths. That is one of our primary jobs as human beings, is to figure out why we are here, why we're doing what we're doing, what is the meaning behind all things, and we do it in so many ways. These are two human endeavors that are aiming at the same types of questions about why the world is as it is and what we should do about it. And they're both fields in which we are sort of looking at provisional answers, right? What's working right now, right? We are constantly evolving those answers. And science does it through the scientific method, through this process of constant review and evolution. But religion is also doing it, right? Religious communities also evolve through time. And sometimes we're aware of it, and sometimes we're not as aware of it, and sometimes we're doing it consciously or not so consciously, but we're doing the same thing. We're trying to respond to the questions that are at the top of mind in this moment. And if there are questions from the community who are watching, feel free to ask them now. We're going to talk for just a few more minutes before passing it on. And go ahead.
I have a thought for you. So I love the description you just provided, and I wonder, we're talking about evolving concepts where there's change, and you have to come along with what that change is. And as a leader, whether you're a leader in the scientific community or in the Jewish community or another religious community, helping people facilitate change, I think that requires empathy. And the work that we do in the center is about helping people build bridges by imagining how others think and feel. And I imagine you do that as well. And what I find particularly compelling is that you're doing that both with Judaism and science at the same time, using fire ants. That's pretty cool.
It's very nice to have that sort of in the background, right? And know that it's a lens that I bring to the way I see the world, right?
Yeah.
And know that it's a bridge, right? Because there are many others who are coming to their spiritual life through that particular lens, as well as other kinds of lenses, right? And it's really an opportunity to experience the subjectivity of each person, right?
Yeah.
To be in connection with each person. I would I had a question and then I forgot
It's all right.
it. It just fell out of my brain.
This happens. If you think about the role of empathy and where empathy can inspire greater trust, I feel like the work that we're doing at the center is we're really trying to help. We've trained over 20,000 scientists around the US and across the globe. And I see opportunities to bring in partners from religious communities as well, maybe even to work in partnership with scientists to help create more connectedness. And I imagine that's something that AJR and you yourself might like to see at a broader scale. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity to create connection. For us, the work is really about relating and connecting through empathy and using improv to get us there.
So I would love to have a little bit more info on that, on the improv. I want to hear more about how you train scientists to communicate using improvisation.
We literally bring people into a room, virtually, of course, more recently. But when we work with people in a room, we do a lot of partner exercises like, here, I'll teach you one right now, where we might mirror each other. And what you learn is that even though I'm leading, I have more work because I want to make sure you're with me and that whatever message I'm sending lands. And if I move too quickly, you can lead now. If I move too quickly and I lose you, that's my responsibility. And if you think about something as complex as science, you move too quickly and people are no longer with you, the empathy is gone, and you lose trust and connection.
Right, so it is exactly the same thing being a clergy person, of course. Like, you can teach whatever you want to teach. And if you have not met people where they actually are, where they're able to receive that, you haven't done anything, right? You haven't actually achieved anything. And I see actually that there's like big questions coming in, and we're not going to be able to address them, so that's unfortunate.
Maybe in the next round of conversation. That looks like a juicy one.
We're wrapping up this short segment. I know there's not enough time to do everything. We could talk for the rest of the day. We are about to turn it over to my friend and teacher, Dr. Ora Horn-Prauser.
Hi, I am Dr. Ora Horn-Prauser, CEO and Academic Dean at the Academy for Jewish Religion. It is truly an honor and a privilege to present the Mevinei Mada Award for enhancing the accessibility of science to Mr. Alan Alda. Many of us are familiar with Mr. Alda and frankly feel like we know him from his work in television, movies, and theater. While he has played a great range of characters, so many of us know him from MASH, where he played a person of science, a doctor who exuded humanity, who felt deeply for others, and who understood friendship and caring. On West Wing, he played a lifelong Republican politician who, after losing the presidential election, joined the cabinet of the newly elected Democratic president. Even in acting roles, Mr. Alda was modeling the ability to communicate with the other through deep understanding. These characters were very human, with human foibles, and yet they knew how to stand up for what's right and how to truly listen and see the other. While we all can marvel over Mr. Alda's acting career, we are really here because of what he chose to do with his success. He has devoted himself to understanding science and to helping others to communicate science. The creation of the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science is a brilliant move, recognizing that not only do we as humankind need good science in order to survive and thrive, but that we need our scientific leaders to be able to communicate to the rest of us what they have learned and why it is so significant. Without that ability to communicate, the message of the value of scientific inquiry can get lost. Our Jewish sacred texts exhibit the same understanding of the importance of communication. Our foundational prayer, which comes from the Torah, the Shema, states, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Israel, listen, focus, pay attention. God is our God, God is one. This is a central monotheistic statement of God's oneness. However, first, on a deeper level, we are being told to hear and to listen. The section following continues to emphasize our role then in passing on that information to our communities and our children. Again, the emphasis is on the communication of this crucial message. Jewish sacred literature understands that the message only gets through when it is communicated well. But I'm not really sure where God in the Torah stands on improv, but you never know. The Alda Center is not just about communication, however. It is about specifically communicating science. We live in a time where we need to understand not just that science is important, but that science impacts on everything. Not only our growth and development, but our very existence rests on getting the science right and effectively communicating its importance to others. At AJR, we appreciate this and recognize the central role that clergy can and need to play in making this happen. The Academy for Jewish Religion is an institution that stands for pluralism. We understand pluralism as truly cherishing the other and recognizing that we become stronger in our Jewish life and just better people through connection with those who are different from us. However, the reality is that we sometimes have difficulty explaining our pluralism to others. Mr. Alda has solved this problem for us, and I quote here from his book. I so loved this idea that on the stage, the other actor has to be able to affect you if a scene is to take place. That I come to the conclusion that even in life, unless I'm responding with my whole self, unless in fact I'm willing to be changed by you, I'm probably not really listening. But if I do listen, openly, naively, and innocently, there's a chance, possibly the only chance, that a true dialogue and real communication will take place between us. That is one of the best definitions of pluralism I think I've ever read. That each of us has to listen with our full selves and be willing to be changed by others. Mr. Alda, in gratitude for all you have done, we have two gifts for you. One is a framed poem by Ruth Bryn that speaks to the intersection of sacred text and science. The other is a book we have put together of statements of appreciation from our community for your life's work. You embody the traits that we at AJR hold so dear: integrity, honesty, empathy, inquiry, pluralism, devotion, and service to others. We are listening, and we are ready to be changed by you. In fact, you seem to have the traits necessary to make a remarkable clergy person. If I remember my MASH correctly, you've already performed a bris. If you have any thoughts about becoming a rabbi, you know where to find us.
I'm very grateful to the Academy for Jewish Religion for honoring us with the Mevinei Mada Award for enhancing the accessibility of science. Making science clear and vivid is something that means a lot to me. 30 years ago, I started hosting Scientific American Frontiers for PBS, where I interviewed hundreds of scientists. 12 years ago, I helped start the Alda Center for Communicating Science at Stony Brook University. And since then, we've trained 20,000 scientists and medical professionals around the world. The reason I do this and why it means so much to me is that we live now in a sea of science. It's in every part of our lives. We have to make decisions about science that are profoundly important to our well-being, even to our existence. We constantly have to decide on an ethical response to new technologies. And we have to learn to be responsible stewards of the world we've been given. How can we do that if scientists aren't able to communicate with us about their work in ways that we can grasp? And there's another reason I'm helping to make science clearer to the rest of us. Because it's beautiful. And we shouldn't be denied the pleasure of that beauty. Religious leaders are in a unique position to guide people in the values and rewards of a life that includes a deeper understanding of science. It'll mean a better life for all of us. So I'm very happy that the Academy for Jewish Religion is working to share the wonder and joy of science. Thank you so much for this award and for your partnership.
I'm so glad to welcome to the conversation Rabbi Dr. Jill Hackle.